Hello, beautiful souls out there. I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight was. And thank you to all of you who have been here loving and supporting Starlight. And it is just a little reminder to all of you, it is difficult to have a YouTube channel, but Starlight's out here doing it. And I just want to let you know, because I made so many other videos before, and when I'm working with new people on my YouTube channel, most of you don't know nothing of what I've already talked about in other videos, so it is complicated to jump in on a video and hear different things that I say. It's like jumping in the middle of a movie and you don't know what you missed, you know. So thank you to all of you that have been so patient with me, because I'm here to use my life story, my journey in life, to help other people, because that's what I got, you know, is to help other people through the things that I've experienced, true life experiences, to help people in their journey in life and the things that I've learned through churches or even through my mentor. So thank you to all of you that are still here loving and supporting Starlight. And before I start this video, hello, my name is Starlight. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and you could find me on YouTube, and that is at Starlight, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman. Plus, you could give my videos a thumbs up, and you could subscribe to my YouTube channel. Plus, don't forget the notification bell, and you can leave me a message down below, beep, 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 and you can share my videos with your family or friends. Plus, don't forget my playlist, and you can also find me on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman Starlight. And also, if anybody would love to send any love donations, you can through my Cash App, and I will have that information here. Ping! There it is. And now, today, it's about, you know, a lot of people go through this, you know, and I didn't make a lot of videos about this stuff, but it's about people that are in a relationship, you know, and this happens. I've been there, you know, I've been in there. I've been on both sides of this. That's why I'm making this video, is because I do have experience in this, life experience. And it's to help people that you might have kids or you might not have kids, but you could be thinking about getting with somebody that has kids already, and you might have kids or you might not have kids. But it's about, are you thinking about being a step parent, you know? And this video is so important because a lot of people learn the hard way, you know, and then by the time they figure things out, it's kind of already too late. The damage is already done. So this video is to help you to plan ahead and think ahead before you consider being a step parent to any children out there. And so, because when I was starting out, when I was a kid, not that I was a step parent, but I was a stepchild, the stepdaughter, having a stepmother. So I'm gonna teach you the things that I learned on my experience as far as a child goes, and what was my lessons, what did I learn through that experience. And also later on in my life, I did have a stepson in a relationship when I used to go to this church a long time ago. So I'm gonna, you know, help people on my experiences, the negatives and positives of what I learned, and just to help people to understand how important it is to, woo, that just flew in. Don't mind me, I got these beautiful trees out here, and the blooms are kind of flying all over like it did in my car. And so, so if you're in a relationship with someone, and like I said, you might not have any kids. You could be a, you know, a female or a male that doesn't have any kids, or you could be a mom or dad that already has kids, and now you're gonna, you know, you're thinking about having a relationship with someone who has kids or don't have kids. And it sounds crazy when I say that, because if you have kids and they don't, well, you're going to be, they're going to be the step parent, because you're the original, parent to the child, whether it's a boy or girl, whether it's your daughter or your son. So we're going to start with first being a step parent, that you are new to even having kids or anything like that. So that is a lot different than somebody that has kids and then they're gonna, get with somebody. But if you never had kids and you're gonna go with somebody who has a child, but you're not the daddy or the mommy, I'll tell you what, take things slow. Really get to know the person, like I will be uploading it. Well, as I'm speaking here, it's going to be a video that I put up before this video, because I'm a video ahead. Is that so my video ahead is like, is the person the right person, that you're going out with, and on that note, that you would want to watch that video first, then to watch the video about step parenting, So it's really important to do that, because if you don't watch the video on is the person the right person for you, it could screw everything up for what you're thinking about now as far as being a step parent. So, hang on, Starlight's got to get some more air, and besides drink some water. So you're going to want to watch the one video first before you watch this video. And I didn't edit it, but it's going to be like something like are you with the right one, kind of. That's pretty much probably what my title will be. So on this video here, as far as being the step parent, and you don't have any kids, you're going to be the stepdad or the stepmom, is I'll tell you what, you definitely want to make sure you don't want to, ooh, is that a huge bee? Wow, it might want to come in here and visit Starlight. But you really want to really get to know the person that you're going to get involved with, like I put into the other video that I haven't uploaded yet. And so please, please, please watch that video first. Then, I'm so sorry, I have two big bumblebees out here. I don't know if I have anything in my car, or if they're gonna fly in. So don't be surprised to see Starlight like freak out. And not that I'm afraid of bumblebees, but they can hit you. They might hit you and then sting you by accident. So anyway, with that being said, is after you watch the video, is that the right person for you? Are they the right one? And if you're like, hey, everything's, yeah, all that is great, okay, I got the warnings of the what ifs, these things that can happen, and am I ready to take that challenge, take that risk of going with that person, knowing if things don't really line up, because you really do want things to line up as far as any relationship that you get in with, as far as a guy or a girl, So, and what I learned when I was a kid is that it was devastating to me as a child. It was devastating. It was a mixture of all kinds of stuff as a stepchild, and I'm going to explain this. So when you're thinking about getting with somebody else and they have a child and you might never had any, you better really think, because to jump in, like, no matter what age the child is, you really want to get to know the child as much as you get to know the person you're dealing with, because this is what happens to a lot of couples that get together with somebody to be step parents, and have a mixed family like that, is that a lot of times they really don't think a whole lot about the children. It's all about us two, getting together, getting to know each other, And yeah, and then they introduce the children to each other when the time is right. But sometimes people, you know, they they met each other with the children there, you know. And so you definitely want to take things very slow and because these kids, if you're okay, guys, if you're wanting to go with that girl and you never had any kids, and she's has a son or a daughter, you know, they got a real dad as long as the dad is still alive and out in the world and he's not in jail or any of that stuff. That person's still alive. They have a depending on the situation, it could, if they just split up because of relationship problems or whatever, and they're separated or even divorced, is that you got to understand that they do have a mommy, or well, in that case with a man being interested in a girl, is that there's a dad out there somewhere. And the best thing that you can do is get along, number one. Don't make beef out of something that you don't really need to. And if they're, you always, and no matter what kind of relationship people are into, I do know people that they ended their relationship good, and they were adults when they ended the relationship. It didn't work. They realized that was, just a lesson to learn, and they moved on their life, and they could talk on the phone and get along, and there's no beef. Yay! But that's not all cases out there. But for the children's sake, you really want to be wise no matter who you are out there. Be the example that the children need out there in the world as far as when any separations happen. Number one, it's so important for the kids. There's couples out there, families out there, they fight. And the kids, you know what? That affects those children in so many different ways. You might not have no clue of how that affects them emotionally, physically, and all that stuff. And it does affect them even later on in life. So always be mindful that it's not just about you and the man, you and the lady. It's about the kids. The kids is a big, huge part of the package as far as getting together with, a lady that has kids or a man that has kids. So, and you don't want to rush things, and sometimes it's already too late. People already rush things, and they could be already in a relationship with that person. They might have skipped the friendship part and already ended up, being boyfriend, girlfriend that quick. Those cases are out there, and so you already been, with each other and being intimate. You know what I mean by being intimate, so it's hard because if you split up, they split up. How long have they been split up? The a guy that's interested in a girl that has kids, whether it's one or two or boy or girl, it doesn't matter, is how long were they broken up, before you got with the person. So important, oh, they just got broken up. I'll tell you what, a lot of people do this. They get done with one, they already got their foot in the door for another relationship to start. And the relationship that they had didn't even, they just got kicked out of the house, and they already got somebody already set up already, a fresh, relationship. And you really, I can't tell you what to do, but that's not really good for the couple or the children on that note, because you got to understand the children don't really know what the heck is going on. They really don't. How old was Starlight when my parents got divorced? I might have been 11, 12 years old. I didn't know enough. I didn't know, parts of me was happy about some things. Parts of me didn't know what to think about any of this stuff, and it was too quick, I really didn't know what a divorce was, I didn't know anything about anything, at 11 years old or 12 years old, you know. So it can be very devastating for the children that go through such a change like that. And you know, is the, you know, hey, yeah, you know, your mom and I are going to get separated. You know, kids don't understand, what does that mean? What does that mean? My parents are going to get separated. What does that mean? You know, you got to take things slow. You know, it's not about just the guy and the girl. If anything, if it's already too late and you've already been, you know, like with the girl or with the guy, you know, and you've already been having sex with each other, you already kind of, you know, got to that point, it's really best if you can keep, you know, kind of not to let the kids know about that, you know, and gradually, you know, through time, but it takes time, you know. You don't want to, like, you know, it's mind-boggling what can happen to the kids in these situations, you know. And a lot of times the parents don't really think about the kids and, you know, what that means for them. And, you know, you really need to sit down when the time comes, you know, but you need to take time, you know, a gradual kind of way of introducing that new step parent in the child or children's life, you know, is to, you know, go out for a hike together, you know, all together, you know, and, you know, like to gradually introduce that, you know, and just takes things slow. Everything doesn't have to be in such a rush. You know, you got to take time to explain to the children why mommy and daddy split apart, you know. So that even goes before even getting together with somebody. Even when you separate from somebody, that, you know, this happens all the time with people, you know, because guess what, they're just another lesson that they had to learn, that they weren't with the right one. And the children go through so much suffering and pain when the parents, you know, things don't work out. It complicates everything for that child's life. Their whole world changes. And, you know, from, you know, one day being with mommy and daddy, and, you know, now everything, you know, feels like it's falling apart. So it's so important that the children, you know, now there's some cases out there that you might be in an abusive family and a relationship, and you got to really, you know, that's a good time to actually go out for seek help and ask, you know, like what to do in those situations as far as abuse goes, you know, because you don't want to scare your kids, but number one, you want to keep them safe. If somebody was in a abusive relationship, no matter what kind of abusive, even if the adult was abusive with the children, definitely report that stuff in. You know, of course, you got to make sure, okay, is this kind, you know, there's all different kinds of forms of abuse, but if it's, you know, physical abuse or sexual abuse, psychological abuse, there's, you know, kids suffer with that as well. So it's not just, you know, there's emotional abuse, psychological abuse, you know, name calling, down putting those children, you know, sexual abuse, all those kind of abuses, you know, the child is going to need to go through some kind of therapy or some kind of counseling, you know, because, or if you're such a good mom or dad, is that you need to talk with your kids a lot, depending on how many kids you have. So I know this is going to, you know, these videos are so important, and it does take time. There's so many people out there, they only have, they only can pay attention as long as TikTok videos, you know, but this is not a TikTok video. These are really important videos, and we can learn in our own life how to help other people out. And that is what I'm doing, is what I went through as far as being a stepchild and having a stepmother, is to help you out. So, you know, you don't rush into things, and you explain things to the kids. They need answers, you know, and always be open with your kids and say, you know what, if you got any questions about something and you don't understand everything, you know, because parents are parents. They're not perfect. They don't have all the answers. You might have missed something. Let the children know, you know, to communicate with you. Have an open communication with the children. So if they have any questions of, you know, what to expect, with a breakup, you know, and you want to take things slow. And a lot of people don't. They don't think about the kids. And it's a shame because those kids, they go from this, this kind of relationship here with these two couples and then a breakup, whether they know what happened or not. All this stuff needs to be broken down to the smallest information for the kids to understand what happened so the kids can learn. And depending on the age, it's so important. All the kids, you know your children well enough and what they can handle, what they can't, but you really need to explain to them, like why there was a breakup in the first place with couples that broke up, and for, to have a new mommy or a new daddy, you want to gradually get into that, and it's good to just, meet out in public first. Go out in a safe environment with that person, that's going to be the new stepdaddy or this new stepmommy, and go out for a hiking trail, go out for a hiking trip or do something that they love to do. Get the kids involved, get to know the children as much as possible, and talk to the kids, get to know the kids. If you don't never had kids, it's a lot for a person that never had kids and getting involved with somebody. And on the flip side of that, if you're the mommy that has the child or the daddy that has the child, you better really get to know the person you're going to get involved with. And I'll tell you, it's really super important. And no matter what age, because all the kids at different ages, they go through different stages. But, you want to make sure the person that you get involved with, if you got to check their name out with the police department, check their name out, find out, hey, you know what, I'm getting to know this guy or girl, and I want to know, they got like Privacy Act, but at the same time, if you're getting together with somebody that has kids, I don't know what the officers could do, or even Google, find out, is there anything, ask them questions. Have you ever been in jail? Oh, you have. Why were you in jail? Have you ever, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. Like, have you ever, been with somebody with children, and, is there anything that I need to know about? You really need to ask, ask as many questions as you can, because you never know what people have done, and it could have gotten, out there, where they could have gotten in trouble for doing something, or even to find out what kind of relationships they had, were they into abusive relationships? What kind of, you really got to get to know the people and what kind of background they have, as far as when you're opening that door to have, your kids, because, there's going to be a time that person that you're getting involved with, you might need a babysitter, you really want to know, can I trust this person with my kids without anybody being around? And like I made videos before about protecting your kids, I'll tell you what, no matter who's watching your kids, you always should have some kind of hidden cameras around the house, even in their rooms at certain ages. Of course, I'm not talking about teenagers. They need to have their privacy in their own rooms, what they do in their room, so Starlight's got her own stuff about that. I'm not going to go too far in debt on that, but really you need to communicate as much as possible, and take things super slow and explain things as you go, and get their feedback on. And it doesn't, it's good to say, hey, what do you think? Just say, for instance, ladies, that you're getting with this guy and his name is John. Hey, what do you think about John? Get their feedback. It's good to hear what they got to say. You'd be surprised what they're going to say, depending on their age. Hey, I like Jack, or maybe, no, I don't really like Jack. Why not? You need to get your kids to express themselves. It's really important. It's good communication skills by getting them to tell you things. You always want to do that with no matter the kids that you have. Always ask them questions, How was school? What happened at grandpa's and grandma's house? Ask them questions. Whoever's babysitting the kids, always ask them questions. You never know what is going on that you don't know about. So you always want to make sure, number one, they're safe. So going slow, introduce, the person to them, but it shouldn't be right away after the breakup. You know, give the children some time. They need to heal, because it's not just you that went through some stuff in that relationship. Depending on what kind of relationship that was, guess what? The children are going through something as well, depending on the relationship that they were, the family that they were in, that what kind of stepdad a dad they had, what kind of mom they had, so the child needs that time, and different stages of the children are going to be totally different. The younger, the better in some ways. I say that, but the only thing about younger kids is if they're babies, they can't talk, Toddlers, they don't understand enough. So there's different stages where there's a time that kids will rat the people out, hey, like they'll just talk and say stuff, and that's a great stage when the kids they're learning how to form sentences. They're learning about what's right, what's wrong, they're learning all these things, they're learning about, depending on what age, good touch, bad touch. So it's so important that your children, really, you explain a lot to them as much as possible at the right stage. And it can be nerve-wracking when they're little, because I had to do that with my kids when they were really super little. I didn't want my kids to go to public school, where my son went to his teacher, and I love everyone, but how can I word this? And it doesn't matter if these people are married or not, but he sounded gay, he walked gay. What can I say? That's, I'm going to just point blank. Just because somebody says, just because somebody wears a ring and they have a wife and they have children, it doesn't mean that they're not having a relationship outside of that family. A lot of men that are gay, or I don't know what they call it these days, that are into men having relationships with men, they actually will have a relationship because they're in the closet about what they're doing, and they're ashamed of what they're doing, and they don't want people to know. And so they have a great cover up as far as having a wife, that way everybody is going to think, oh, he's got a wife and he's got children, but it doesn't matter, so and that is something that you always got to watch out for. You want to make sure that your children are safe. And as far as parenting goes, as far as going slow, making sure they're safe, and also when it comes to being a step parent, is, like I said, communicating with them, see what they think about the person, and they're not going to be the ones to decide whether you're going to get together with them or not, or whether it's going to work out. The other thing that's really important is to get along with, the real mom and daddy, so if you're a lady that's interested into getting together with that man, get along with the wife, his wife or ex-girlfriend or whoever she was, the mommy. You don't want to have a beef with the people. And this should be with everyone that we're in contact with, is always want to handle things in an adult way. And I know that's not always possible in all relationships, because there's some people that could have backgrounds, and they could have mental illnesses, they could have traumas, and they could have different kind of disabilities and different things, or things that they didn't learn through when they were a child, and they're dealing with those things now. There's people that have anger issues and spirits, people that have spirits, so you really want to get along with the people. And depending on how the separation, what took place, was it just somebody, messing around, fornicate, having adultery, or cheating, was it abuse, what kind of breakup was that? So and that's what complicates a lot of things, is because the breakup could have been really bad. Really, I mean, there's times people get involved with the police department because it was that bad, and the kids go through a lot through those kind of relationships. So you really want to get along with those people as much as possible. And it's not always the case. There's a lot of people that deal with bad situations like that, get involved with somebody else. And that's why it's so important that you take your time. You don't rush this at all. You take it very serious, because it's not just about, the mommy and daddy, or, the new stepdad or the new stepmom. It's about the whole package, because, there's people that want to get with a girl or get with a guy, but they don't want nothing to do with the baby, or the children. They just want that person. And there's times that people will get in those kind of relationships. They don't want to have nothing to do with being a mom or a dad, but they get with that person because they're so into that person that they might rush the whole thing and push everything and just think that they can get in that relationship without being responsible, and getting in that relationship for the right reasons. It's not just about the adults. The kids are a huge package deal, and it's so important. No matter who it is, as far as the mommy and daddy goes, step parents or whatever, is to be the example that you want your kids to follow, and it's not always easy if you're having problems in the past with other relationships. And that's why, there's times that we need to go through therapy and stuff like that, and counseling, to get get some kind of help somewhere out there. And Starlight would love to, anybody that needs any help as far as parenting goes. I am working on stuff in the background. I'm just still working on things. I would love to help you out, and that will be coming up soon, as far as because I have a big, huge heart for families and kids. It's all about protecting the kids, and so that will be coming up. That's my first time announcing that. So I could be a big help to anybody out there that is going through some struggles as far as, step parenting and stuff like that, or anything with children, or even relationships. So many topics, like I cover on my YouTube channel. If any of you got any kind of questions, please don't be afraid to ask any questions, because that's how I'm going to be able to help you out, is by reaching out and saying, hello, Starlight. I got my Instagram, I got Facebook out there. You can reach out. Let me, if you're going to reach out to me on Instagram, which is complicated here because I don't have that stuff on my phone. I have to go to the library, but say, hey, I'm going to send a message on Instagram to you, or on Facebook. This is me. I really want to reach out to you and ask you certain things. Please do so. I would love to help you out in different ways. And that's what this is all about. Hang on, I gotta get some air. I guess get some water. So and a lot of times when people the daddy and mommy break up, and say it's been a year later, and you got with somebody else, and whatever, you're in a new relationship, and you're the stepdaddy or the stepmommy. There's many times that people want to move out of the area, and that means the kids got to go, to a new location and a new school system. That's why everything needs to go slow. It's not just about the adults, it's about the kids. You need to, talk with your kids. They're not gonna, some of them, depending on their age, they might not like it. Talking about going, a new location. First, they might think it would be great to go to a new house, but when they find out that they're, depending on how they are in school and what their situation in school is like, it could devastate them in such a way. And because they could have really cool friends in school, and then when they move, they might think they're going to lose their friends, and that doesn't have to happen. If they got really good friends at school, it doesn't mean that that's the end of all. You got to communicate with your kids and let them know is, the guy that I'm with, if it's a guy, that's going to be the stepdaddy, is that, well, honey, I'm sorry, but we need to move out of this location. He works out here, and he makes good money, and so we need to move because his job is that way, and mommy is going to get a job. If the mommy is going to get a job instead of being a stay-at-home mom, which would be the best, thing for the child, is to be a stay-at-home mom. For those of you that really want to nurture your kids and really build in your child's life their whole existence, that would be the best way to bring up your children in that way, because your children would benefit later on in life, depending on what kind of parent you are. So, you got to communicate with the kids, break everything down, and don't treat them like they don't have feelings. They have feelings, and all the kids are different, no matter if they're a boy or a girl. And just because a boy, is a boy, it doesn't mean that that boy doesn't have feelings. It can get emotional like a female, and depending on the ages. But if it's the case of that they're going to miss out on their friends or even the neighborhood kids, is that if you really knew these kids and they had a really good connection with these kids, and they were good examples for your child, you could say, honey, you know what, wait, don't worry about all that, because we can get together with them when we do the shift, when we move into another location, a new home. You can always let them know, hey, we're going to have a new home. You can make new friends. So these are ways that you can help them to make the adjustments that they need. And you gotta understand, they go through a lot, depending on their ages. Babies don't know any different, but they're at certain ages when they're, it could be a different child, 7, 8, around that age and up. They all can be emotional, and it's okay. It's good that they got emotions. Is that you don't want to beat them up because they are sensitive, and you don't want to yell at them because it's a boy, and say, hey, stop crying, you're a boy. No, let them cry, let them have their moments, because especially if they've been there their whole time, and that's all they ever knew. There's some kids, like my kids, they were moved all the time. We were one place and now another place, but it was a lot. I was a single mom, so you got to really be wise with the children and how you really introduce the whole thing as far as being, a step parent and having that kind of family, and you want to make sure that they communicate with you. Hey, what do you think about moving out of here? Go to that area. Let them get used to the area. Let them, take them hiking. Show them the place. You can even show them the house that you want to move into or whatever, and get them kind of comfortable and feel, it's going to be a lot of talk, and you really need to talk with your kids a lot and work through them, help them out with their emotions and their feelings, because there's people out there, they don't do that with their kids. They're really quick, and they don't really think that the children are a big, huge impact in the family, and they're everything to the family, because that's a part of the package, and you want to really take your time with all this stuff. And it's not just like even my video here. I couldn't make a quick video on this topic about this. No, it's really important. So and as time goes by in that relationship, it's going to take time for them to adjust, and that's why you want to, before you get moved in together and stuff like that, you want to have quality time, kind of gradually get them used to the other person, so they're not a stranger when they get, and as far as step parenting goes, is that you really, hopefully, everybody's going to be an adult, like on both sides. If there's like a mom and dad, on both ends, you got two dads and two moms, step parents and all this stuff, mixture, is that you really want to come together and really try to be on the same page as far as rules in the house goes. You really, 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 really want to do that, because it really will help out with a transition with the children when they get, when they're divided, separated into two, got mommy over here, a real mommy over here, and a stepdad over here, and daddy over here. He's got a new girlfriend, everybody's got, somebody, is that you really want to really have the same kind of rules in the houses, so that as much as possible, because it really is not easy for the kids to, not know what to expect. They can really be confused, and it can cause a lot of emotional trauma in their life, and psychological issues, as far as, you know, um, not knowing their place, not knowing what the rules are. And you really need to let them, even write those rules down somewhere in the house and let them know. So then, hey, these are the rules to our house. They can't act ignorant because you got them out there. They know what the rules of the house is, and you could teach them to follow those rules in a good and in a good, decent way, without beating them. So I know I had a pointer on that note, is so being, now you got the rules set up, and also about making sure with all the kids, if there's a whole bunch of kids, maybe this couple here, say both couples have two, there's I don't know, the one couple has got 2 kids and the other one's got 3. So when they come together, now you got 3 kids. You got all together, 3 kids, because this couple had 2 and you had 1, and you're coming together. Now you got 3. Is that you really want to treat all the kids equally, and that, I'll tell you what, people have a hard time with that when they have just, say, if you just have 2 kids, you want to treat them equally, and you don't want to treat one better than the other or have favoritism. You really want them to all feel loved in the family, not to have favoritism and like, hey, you're my favorite child, and because that does happen, is that there's people that will, the stepchild will be the favorite child of the whole family, or this child will be the favorite. Should there really be a favorite child in the family? Think about that. You really want to treat them, in a good, caring way. You don't have to treat them the same, but they should know, and it's so important to get alone time with each child. Like, hey, today all the kids are going to go with daddy, and they're going to go. And then there's times, daddy's only going to take one child, and it's that child's day, and it doesn't have to be a birthday or a holiday. It's like, okay, we're going to have alone time. We're going to go out and do what you like. We're going to go out today, and we're going to go do the things that you like, and then pick another child another day. When they, it could be a reward, when they are doing things in the house, and say, hey, you've been really doing good. We're going to go out, and we're going to spend all day together and have our time, with mommy, and, separately. You don't always have to have the kids together, doing things together. It's great to break that up and take some time out with each child individually. Like, now it's mommy's turn. Mommy's going to take, this one out, and take the boy out, and it's going to be mommy and Sunday. And then, another day, it could be mommy and daughter day, and hey, it's going to be mommy and the stepchild day, make them all feel great, so it would be really great for all of them, because they will all feel important. And it's so important because it will help them out when they get older, and when they later on, they could end up being a step parent and say, hey, I like what they did. I like how they spent that time alone with me. I felt special that day. All the children will feel special on that day, and just kind of get away, from the other kids. So anyway, these are tips that I have for step parenting, separation, and step parenting. So I love you so much. I hope you really get a lot of help. If you have any topic that you want to talk about, I tell you what, I'll talk about pretty much anything. I'm not really into politics, though, because I don't really have the information on a lot of that. But that is my least favorite topic, and the Hollywood stars is probably my other least topic of what Starlight would actually discuss on her YouTube channel. There's other people out there, they know what they're talking about. I don't want to pretend to talk about something I don't know nothing about, so those for couple, I'll talk about almost anything. So if you got any questions, don't feel afraid to hit me down below and leave a comment. Ask, you got questions, ask, because that's how we're all going to learn. I love you so much. Thank you for all of you who've been here, loving and supporting Starlight. Namaste. This is Starlight, love, light, and peace. Thank you for watching. This is Starlight. Namaste. This is Starlight, love, light, and peace.